evening. It is 5:01 p.m. I am Rob Watton. I call the Public Safety Committee to order. Um, Clerk, please note that we have Councilmember Christensen, Councilmember Cotton, as well as myself present, as well as Mayor Ross, a whole crowd, which is awesome, especially the young ones. Uh, and then also our city administrator Chambliss and city attorney Burke, and of course yourself, Clerk Dean, just to make sure we got it all. All right. First order of business is to approve the agenda. Is there any
So moved. Second.
motion? It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Any corrections to it? Hearing none, we will adopt the agenda as approved. Next, the moment so many people are waiting for, public comment. Well, let me give you the ground rules for this. First of all, we are thrilled because this is a rarity to have people actually show up and be here. That's the first thing. So public comments, we're allowing 3 minutes, and we'll take those as you want to approach the podium. When you do, you'll be giving first your name, your legal name, and your residence address, and then those two things. We encourage your input. Please understand that if the matter is new, we will not act on it here tonight. However, we will take it under advisement and may consider it in our work ahead. For those wishing to make public comments, please come to the podium as I call on you. Please direct your comments to the committee as a whole and not as individuals. Please understand that we will listen intently at the discretion of the chair, that's me. We may refer your matter to the appropriate department at our discretion, my discretion, but your comments are incredibly helpful. For those joining us online or listening later, we always take comments. You can send those over to the city clerk or send it directly to me, and we will include those in our further deliberations. Just please keep your comments germane to public safety, health and wellness topics. The other things we've got other committees for. So we'll invite you to those committee meetings too. This is kind of the warm up. And with that, and by the way, everything is being recorded through Zoom and will be made available on our city website for your future enjoyment. So with that, would anybody like to come forward? Please come on up. Thank you. And give us your name and residence for the record.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Timothy Fiedler. I live at 39649 Southeast Park Street. So first of all, it's my wife's 38th birthday, so this is a very important topic to be missing out on birthday dinner. As my son Aries here is showing, it's related to car traffic on Park Street. We live in a really great part of town. We've got a high school. We live between high school, elementary school, and a middle school. We've got some great parks that the city is invested in. And with all of that, it brings a lot of automobile traffic to our neighborhood for football games, for the Mount Si golf course, for the Little League football that happens every fall. There's always a different season of event or something going on, and having people come to our neighborhood, which is great. I think the problem, though, is that people aren't aware of the speed at which they drive through the school zones where there's, as you can see, a number of people here. We've got a lot of kids in the area that aren't just there during school time. They're there all the time. In the past year, we've had, some of our neighbors will speak to cars hitting cars in front of our houses in the school zone and totaling vehicles. We've had cars end up in ditches just a week or two ago, down by Centennial Fields. There's a real safety issue. My dog was hit by someone speeding. My dog got out. That's my fault. But I think that if the person driving the car had been driving a little slower, they probably would have been able to stop in time. Fortunately, it was my dog, not my kid. That's kind of my thought, right? So I know you guys are looking at speeding cameras. I think that's a great first step, but I think there's maybe some other, is the street needs to be redesigned, other design changes that could be done, pedestrian islands, we've emailed, I know about speed humps, other things to take into consideration. So that person who's a little late to their tea time remembers it's a neighborhood, they need to slow down as they come through. So, thank you. That's really all I had to say. And if you can help us just slow people down a little bit, that we don't have to yell, it's a neighborhood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. All right. Who's next?
Hey, I'm Nick Postiglione. I live at 8385 Euclid Avenue Southeast. Just echoing, Tim kind of rallied a lot of us here today to come. We've all been complaining about the same thing over and over again. I've just frustrated. This past maybe fall, my daughter almost got hit at that four-way stop sign. Someone looking left, turning right, just on their phone, took a quick look and turned, right? He's fallen in the road. It's a narrow sidewalk by the high school on Park Street where they tore down the houses and they just reforested. He almost got hit. He fell off the curb and into the road, and cars just go flying by. Not even like the 20-mile-an-hour flashing school signs are there. It just says, hey, between these hours, you're supposed to go 20 miles an hour. I emailed about the rumble strips. I know it's temporary, but didn't work. Just hopefully the city got the same kind of assessment on that. They just break apart, and I don't think it slows anyone down. I don't know. I'm not a traffic engineer. I don't know what the answer is. At least flashing lights. Better street design, I know takes time. I think my main ask here today is just some sort of timeline that can do something, just even a little something by next school year, perhaps. I know things can't move too quick. Funding needs to happen. I know the city bought all that land. There's a plan for like a river walk and everything, and that takes time to build out pedestrian zones and re-engineer streets. And you might want to align it when you pave streets, but just flashing signs, more police presence, speeding cameras would be sweet. Even like $100 tickets to remind people, okay, I'll slow down a little bit here in the school zone. I live a little bit off Park Street, and people, the kids, mostly after school or before school, speed and cut around the main arterial roads to avoid Park Street or wherever there's traffic built up. So keeping that in your consideration as well. They blow through it. Wilbert lives right by me. The stop signs over at Alpha and Euclid and all the other areas that I don't see out my window, watching the high schoolers go by, but then I see my wife or my mom with my kids if I'm working or something like that, and cars are just blowing through. And, the last thing I think anyone wants in this town is one of the kids to get hit and something significant to happen. And we really all don't want something like that to happen until action's taken. So I know things cost money, they take time, but just something small. And I ask you just to consider to do something by next school year. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Nick. Who's next? It's a friendly group. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Wissink. I live at 39636 Southeast Park Street. I think we're all here to talk about the same thing tonight, and I'd like to expand a little bit on some of the things that I've lived at 39636 Park Street for the past 7 years now. And in that course of time, I've had a vehicle totaled that was parked on the side of the street. An impaired driver came cruising down Park Street through the four-way stop with Meadowbrook, proceeded east, slumped over their steering wheel, came across a lane of traffic and head nosed into my parked vehicle that was on the shoulder. They were headed for the golf course, I assume. We've also had one of our dogs get hit on Park Street, who got outside of our fence and was out for probably about 3 minutes, and someone came speeding through. She's all right. She only suffered a broken leg. And just this last Saturday, as I was coming back home from the Mill Pond Road, coming into the four-way intersection that is Meadowbrook Park, a car came speeding at a high rate of speed down Meadowbrook, past the high school, did 2 donuts in the center, and then peeled off across the bridge through a red light and back beyond Mill Pond Road. It is a racetrack out there. There have been instances of cars in the early morning hours that head down through down Park Street, past Meadowbrook, and then use it as access to get across to North Bend. I leave for work in the early morning, usually around 4:45. There's a pretty strong police presence on 202 parked in the middle school parking lot. I think some of that effort could be really compounded and made more effective if they were to police both sides of the field itself. I understand that there are issues when you're trying to redesign traffic intersections, specifically relating to the ability for snow plows to access and be able to plow the streets to effectively reach the schools. Something I've seen implemented in other jurisdictions that works really well are the pedestrian islands that lead at all the major intersections that are used with traffic crossings. We have some that have flags out that are staffed during school hours. Those raised pedestrian islands work really well in Redmond. I'm a contractor and I was working in Redmond right next to the high school, and it is impossible to speed past Redmond High School and past their middle school, because if you do, you get launched. But it allows their snow plows, they're at the top of a very large hill, and the snow plows are able to make it up, retract blades because they're well marked, and they're probably a 3 or 4 foot wide incline, so that you're not digging in and tearing up, you're not tearing up speed bumps. Anything that could be done would be greatly appreciated and really well received from the residents in Meadowbrook. With that, I see my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. All right, who else? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Gracia Tharp, and I live on 8870 Meadowbrook Way. So I am one of the few houses right but near the high school. And so my children here, I have 2 boys, and we will be in the walking zone for their entire school career. So we live, in the middle of the elementary school, high school, and junior high. And I'm here as well with our fellow neighbors to also echo the concern of the traffic safety. I have 2 boys that have just learned how to ride bicycles, and one of our concerns is the sidewalk is very, there's no shoulder in several places on Meadowbrook. And so when my son took a fall off the sidewalk, he went right into the lane of traffic and was almost hit by a car. And I'd also like to echo the concern of the speed in which people travel through Meadowbrook as well as Park Street. We're walking to school down Meadowbrook, and oftentimes I'll cross the street and use part of the portion of the road where in front of the high school, there's a divider of some plants and greenery. So we try to utilize that, but there's several sections where the sidewalk is right next to the street and there's no shoulder. And I'd also like to acknowledge, which several people have said, is that, these things take time, like rebuilding sidewalks and engineering the roads is going to be a bigger project. So I think our immediate concern is the traffic speed. And if people slow down, it gives time for, a child to fall on the road, they're able to stop. And then the long-term goal for me and the ask would be to re-engineer either the roads or having some alternative plans for sidewalks so that there's a division between the street and the sidewalk. And I think there's a lot of, upon just some self-research of solutions for the speed, I think cameras would be a good option. I understand there's a restriction with speed bumps with the snowplows, but like many others, an immediate solution would be really helpful because we just see so many people. I mean, there's young teenagers speeding in front of our home, and there's also that bypass of people going to Dirtfish, where we're getting a lot of very high-speed traffic coming through. So thank you so much for your time, and we really appreciate you considering some options, both short and long term.
Thank you, Gracia. Please.
Hey there, my name is William. I live at 38985 Southeast Park Street, so I'm right across from Riverview Park.
May we get your last name?
Last name
please,
is Cleary, Cleary.
for the record.
Oh.
It's
Yeah,
not so much for me as for the.
My
for the
wife,
clerk.
who's not here today, recommended that we request some of the flashing lights at some of the busier crosswalks. So you know, a lot of pedestrian traffic to the park from Euclid or maybe down by the high school, and everybody's speeding by, of course, just like everyone's mentioned. And so some of those flashing light crosswalks that you guys have installed on Railroad are very effective. I think that'd be a great thing to add in and might help with some of that stuff and the safety concerns. Um, I guess one of the other things that I would request would be that if you guys are going to put in something on Park Street, whether it be speed bumps, traffic cameras, or flashing lights, higher police presence, I think what that's going to do is ultimately it's going to send or redirect high school traffic into the smaller streets because they're going to try to avoid those things. And so it might have an unintended effect. Just take that into consideration too. Maybe, I don't know if this would be something that would be possible, but maybe a traffic flow study where we could, you know, look at where the high school traffic is exiting and maybe direct them in a certain direction. I don't know. Sending them down Park Street towards all the houses and stuff is the best idea. And that's what would happen, I think, if you guys put in some of the restrictive measures on Park Street.
Thank you very much, William. Anyone else, please?
Hello, my name's Fitzpatrick Jordan. I live at 39621 Southeast Park Street. My wife and I have lived there for 3 years now, and it's a wonderful neighborhood. I think Tim was talking about this earlier. We are not only between three schools, but we also are surrounded by Centennial Park. We have a church down the street. There is the dog park as well across from Centennial. It's just a very dense collection of important family and community gathering places. And that brings a lot of families and kids. And it's just a shame to see every day how many cars just fly down our road. And it is kind of scary, you know? It's scary for the families that surround us. As we, you know, talk about family planning, it's scary for us and our future in the community. And yeah, we would just love to see the committee and the council really do something about it. We understand that the committee will be hearing a proposal for cameras, and that absolutely sounds like a great start. And we hope that the committee takes that to heart and really takes that seriously. As others have suggested, there's a lot of other opportunities on these roads. And we really hope that the committee makes those ideas a priority and takes them seriously. One thing that we've also noticed, just to tack on to the many other ideas mentioned today, is that there is a serious inconsistency in the school zone speed limits in our area. Given we are surrounded by so many schools, it is clear that there's been an attempt to set school zone speed limits. However, down Meadowbrook, we see that there is 20 miles an hour between 7 and 4, but right in front of our house, we only see the blinking lights for like, I don't know, 45 minutes a day, maybe at 2 times a day. So, and then coming in from the golf course into Meadowbrook, the signage again is just super unclear. The hours, what the speed limits are and should be, are super unclear. And I think making that more obvious to the people driving by is just an easy thing for us to do to help curb some of the horrible speeding in our area. So yeah, just really hope that the committee takes it seriously and really helps us to make our neighborhood a lot safer and really reach its full potential for the families there. So thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. Anyone else? All right. Well, with that, one more attempt. Anybody else for public comment? If not, I will close public comment at this time. Of course, you can come back in 2 weeks and see us again. I just want to thank everybody that spoke. Timothy, Nick, Andrew, Gracie, Gracia, William and Jordan. What I captured is, you know, there's a strong desire for us to slow things down, to make sure that the timing of the school zones is perhaps more coordinated to make sure that there's slowing mechanisms. We'll take those under advisement and, thank you for your patience as we work through. Some of these things may be more immediate and others may take more time. But all your comments are very much appreciated. It helps us to be a little more sensitive to your community. And thank you for bringing community and your neighbors together. So thank you very much. Comments from the other council members? Yeah, Councilmember Christensen.
I appreciate you all being here tonight. I am excited to hear about speed cameras, which I know are coming up, and that's been something that has been important to me. We live kind of up by Timber Ridge, and my son is also at SES, so I drive that on a daily basis and have seen it as well. So I look forward to getting some progress in all the areas, I guess, that are impacted in terms of making sure that our kiddos can be safe.
Councilmember Cotton, anything that you'd like to
I
add?
mean, I drive that road actually almost every day. I'm out in Meadowbrook or the surrounding area. And I agree with you as far as some of the drivers there, because for those of us that do slow down for the school zones, and there is a discrepancy of, it'll drop from 35, then all of a sudden 25, and then it's 20 in the school zone. If we could definitely get that to be a little better controlled. But I do find that there's a lot of people when I slow down to the speed limit that like tailgate me and yeah, yeah. So it's a problem.
Yeah. And I think, as residents here too, we only see our own immediate neighborhoods. So it's hard to know what's going on everywhere. William, I'm very sad about your car. I mean, being totaled on the side of the road. And a couple of you mentioned dogs being hit. That's just traumatic. And to think that, your kids, and one of the things we can take a look at is like complete streets and maybe make an assessment to see where that might fit in a finishing sidewalk. Some of the cities have done that, and that might be something worthwhile. But those things happen to be under a capital budget and they take a lot longer. So, but as you recognize, some of these things we can address more immediately, and we'll do our best on that. So with that, thank you very much. You're free to stay or you're free to leave. So it's your choice. We do have more exciting things that we talk about here. Thank you much. Have a great evening. Thank you for being here. All right, we now move on to the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Christensen, second by Councilmember Cotton. Any discussion? Hearing none, we will approve the minutes dated April 21st, 2025, approved as presented. And next, he's been waiting for a moment. Chief Bailey, Fire Department First Quarter Accreditation Report. Welcome.
Good evening. Just gonna share my screen here.
Your department's been busy this week because I've seen them go flying by this past week. Mutual aid.
Then the speed limit.
Oh, well, yeah, well, most of the
State
time.
speed limit.
I think it's your department's a little bit more watching the speed.
Go.
Oh, that sure is a pretty red shiny truck up
Yeah,
there. And
That's not on the agenda yet. That's the next agenda item, but no. So that is the picture of the new engine. We'll have a report on that after this is over, but I put that on the quarterly report for a picture of what it looks like. I believe that was when they went to go look at it in Yakima a month or so ago.
It's getting closer.
Yes, we'll get to there. So the first page that I just breezed through was just the introductory. It just included updated stats. What I want to do is just kind of hit some of the things that I have changed. I did make some changes that were requested from the last year's accreditation report. So the first change here is we added in our new goals and objectives, not only for the strategic plan, but I also included the ones from the recommendations that came out of our accreditation visit. So that's what the first ones you'll see here are. are the ones from the accreditation visit. The first page there, I believe we had a total of 10, 11 ones that we're looking at. The first one we hadn't started on, we used the same color. I changed the colors a little bit, but we used the same thing with on the left-hand side. It kind of gives us an idea of where we're at on the objectives that we've seen. So this is just going through the first part, going through our accreditation recommendations. Like I said, there was 11 of them. So you'll see those in your packet. The next one is have all the strategic goals that came out of the strategic plan. And they're organized by the different goals. So under each goal, there's different objectives that we're working on. And you can see there that we have goal 1, 2, 3, and 4. Just to point out on those, that was adopted in January. It's a 5-year plan. We haven't had a whole lot of movement yet just because we've had 5 probationary firefighters that we've been working on. But we did, this was brought to the officers meeting in April. It was brought to them in regards to showing them this same graphic about all the different goals and objectives that we have. And then at our meeting next week, we're actually going to be assigning some of the team leads to some of these goals to start working on them. So it is on the to-do plan. We just hadn't gotten anything yet, but hopefully as we go through the year, you'll see some updates to the status of the goals and objectives there. The next one here is the incidents per year. It's the same design we've had before, but I just wanted to point out that, again, you've all heard 1715, the most amount of calls last year. And then if you look at for this quarter, that's the blue line on there for 2025 is we're already above, in a couple of the months, we're already above where we were. So we're not going down. We're not getting any less. The next one here is our mutual aid. And if you can see across, it stays pretty consistent. First of all, I'm sorry, before we get into mutual aid, the type of incidents that we have, again, we've included 2024 to compare against 2025. Our types of calls pretty much have stayed fairly close. You'll see EMS has gone up just a little bit. When we get to the end of the year, it's probably going to level out to about what we normally see. That hasn't really changed from year to year. Bottom is the mutual aid given and received category that we use. Again, you'll see a couple, a percentage or two, little bit of a difference from last year to this year, but it's a pretty minor difference. It stayed pretty consistent, that pie chart, give or take a percentage or two. The next one here, the next page, we talk about mutual aid given. So you can see there for the first quarter of 25, 117 times to East Side, 9 times to Fall City, and then 4 times to other, which would be probably Snoqualmie Pass, I believe, or what the others are this time. Could also be Redmond, depending on where we go for mutual aid. Mutual aid received, East Side came into us 50 times, Fall City 14, and then one other department came in 1 time. And then separate from those, you can just see of those calls that people came into the city, 7 of them were for larger instances where we needed more than 1 unit. A new stat that I added this year is the calls versus units for mutual aid given. So you can see there, I put in how many times we went on calls versus how many times we went on units that were on those calls, because that is a difference we've talked about before. When East Side comes into us, a lot of times it's for a bigger call. They bring more than 1 unit. So you can see there again, just restating, East Side came into the city 50 times in the first quarter, but they brought 97 units on those 50 calls. So there's a little bit of a difference there. We went to East Side 117 and it was 121. There's a couple times where we took both of our rigs, where we had both rigs available. It was a larger call, so both the engine and the aid car went. So that's a new statistic we're going to keep an eye on. So you'll see that gaining over the rest of the year, just to make that difference between call versus units. The last one on the page there is the transports by Snoqualmie. Again, you can see in the first quarter, we transported 84 times, and then we transported 11 times. We transported somebody from outside the city. So that was on a mutual aid call. We transported 11 times when we went to East Side's area, and none of Fall City's patients. So we do get the revenue from those 11 transports. Next is the performance measures section. This is the same as we had before. I just want to point out again that you'll see that our turnout times, you're going to see it. We tell our fire officers they need to report on anything above 1:30. getting out the door. So you'll see the majority of our time is under a minute 30. Anything over 1:30, we talk about at the officers meeting. They have to give a reason as to why. Most of the time that has to be because it happened after midnight. Takes a little bit longer to get out of bed, but they do have to report out as to why they had a longer turnout time between 1:30. We didn't have anything above 2 minutes, which I think is good to point out. We're getting out within 2 minutes. The next one there is for our apparatus travel times within the city. Most of them are grouped, as you can see there, around up to the 7-8 minute mark. That's where we can get most of the time in the city. There are a couple that are above that, and that's just gonna be because it was probably out on the far reaches, and sometimes we don't respond from the station. We might be down at, say, for example, we're just clearing a call down at the elementary school. We get a call up on the ridge. Our travel times are gonna be longer because it doesn't necessarily always go from the station. It goes from where the rig starts its unit. So that kind of explains why we have a couple over the higher range. Next there, we have fire inspections. Again, fire inspections were down just a little bit this quarter because of our probationary firefighters that we're working on, but we did have our daytime captain try to pick up some of the slack, and we were able to get 45 done.
Oh, sorry. Councilmember Christensen.
Thanks. Chief, I just had a quick question. Now that we're able to run 2 rigs, how do you do the tracking? Do you track it from the first rig that's able to get there, the travel time there?
It's
Do
the
both of
first
them
unit.
play in?
It's the first unit. Our times are always done from the first unit on scene. And inside the city, not only do we track the first unit on scene for us, it also, if we're not available, it will be the time that we use for our accreditation data. It's the time that the first unit, even if it's from a mutual aid, arrives on scene. Majority of the time, it's gonna be us, but there are times where it's a little bit longer too, because you're getting somebody from Fall City or North Bend, or even sometimes Issaquah, if we're on our second or third call.
Thank you, Chief.
But we are starting to track a little bit more too. We're starting to put together the stats of how many times we do have the station manned with 2 volunteers to have that aid car available, or we do have 4 or 5 firefighters with a volunteer available to where we can split the crews. We're just starting to track that. I haven't put it on here yet, but that is something that we're looking at this year, is how many times that occurs, to show how those extra firefighters that we had this year, how they've made a difference. So we are starting to look at that and collect that data too.
Thank you, Chief.
Last one we have on here is property lost and saved. Last quarter, we only had 1 incident. It was a small room and contents. Pretty much it was a chair that had a battery, a rechargeable battery on it that was smoking, and it caught the chair on fire, but it was put out before it caused any damage to the room. So we only had $200 content loss. So as you can see there, our percentage saved is a little bit better than it was last year. We're back up to where we like to see. Usually we hover in that 80-90 range. Last year with the big fire downtown, we were a little bit lower, but this is what we like to see, the room and contents fires that are put out right away, because we're able to get crews there rather quickly and not progress to a structure fire. So that's going over the accreditation report. Is there any questions I can entertain on that information?
Council members, anything? I want to thank you for that report, and it's just, I've seen at least 3 times where there's been 2 rigs responding. So that's really great to see, and I know that there are a lot more that you're able to respond to, and the volunteers, and bring up the fact that the volunteers are helping to supplement things. That's awesome as well. And I'm always impressed with your response times. They're amazing.
Thank you.
So
And,
anyway,
and one thing to point about, that you just mentioned the time you see 2 units. It's still a learning curve for the officers. We're still kind of figuring out how that looks, because they haven't had that option before. And I think and especially part of that too is the probationary firefighters we have. I think even next year, we're going to see even higher numbers, just because right now we're still, the probationary firefighters aren't ready to be on their own yet. So sometimes we have to be a little creative in the day based on who's on, as to whether they can go with 1, whether they can go with 2 units, whether they can leave 1 behind. So we're still kind of figuring out how that's going to look. But the more that we have it available, and the more we kind of dial it in with the officers on on how they should set up the day. I think we're gonna get even higher as we go along. You're gonna see even some better numbers as to how often we have those 2 units available. Or even more importantly, what I'm concerned about is having 1 unit go on a call, but having that second unit stay behind when another unit's transporting, so that we have the city covered in case another call comes in while they're out on one. So having that second unit available for that second call is really what we're trying to get done.
Right. Helps to reduce our need on mutual aid from others. We use it quite a bit. So even though we give a lot, we receive a lot as well. All right, with that, you got a shiny new truck for us, right? Coming. It's
just
3/4
turn off
of the way here.
Let me just turn off the stop sharing there so we're not, okay. So next thing there, I'll just give a report on the new engine.
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
So Deputy Chief Brown has been in charge. Once he got on board, he's been the one that's taken on the project of the new engine. So I asked him to kind of write a couple of paragraphs or give me a memo on what's happened so far the last couple of months. So I'm just going to, he did a great job putting this together. So I'm just going to read it. So you'll notice a couple of the versions that talks about but we're referring to Chief Brown as he wrote this memo. So first of all, February 25th through the 27th, Chief Brown and Matt West traveled to Louisiana to do a final inspection on the new engine. And they were also accompanied by one of the fleet mechanics from Puget Sound that we use our fleet over across the Tiger Mountain or Highway 18 there. While we were there, they identified over 100 discrepancies that either weren't in compliance with the build specifications or were manufacturing flaws. Many of the issues were addressed and fixed while still on site. And they also performed several performance function tests to include pumping water, driving the apparatus, and a check of the safety systems. 100 seems like a lot, but that's pretty standard with these kind of builds, that you find stuff that needs to be tweaked and fixed. On or around April 1st, the engine arrived in Yakima at the C Western facility. That's kind of like the dealer, the manufacturer, then it goes to the dealer. So that was in Yakima. It was driven from Louisiana to Yakima by a privately hired driver. That's how they typically do it. During that drive, it sustained a broken windshield, but that was repaired right away. They replaced the windshield as part of that. On April 15, Lieutenant West and I traveled to Yakima to complete a post-delivery inspection. During that visit, they requested several items to be modified or constructed. Things that needed, we ordered this rig over a year ago. So there were some things that changed, some things that we decided to tweak a little bit. It was all included as part of the budget, so nothing was added to that. It was part of the contingency that was added, so we didn't go over budget. But they added some new shelving unit, changed out some headsets, changed some of the design of some of the compartments, reprogrammed some of the lighting on it. So they've been working on that. Due to some of the items having to be fabricated or ordered from outside agencies, they initially gave C Western a date of May 7th to have the engine. Took a little bit longer because of some of the requests that we had. So we had to push out our delivery for the engine and subsequently the birthday celebration at the station and the engine. So based on that, we have a new delivery date of June 2nd. They've told us that absolutely we'll have it by then. He's been getting daily progression reports on the engine. Just before that, on May 8th, so they were there just 2 weeks ago. They were there for a week ago. They were there for a conference. A lot of the city staff, they went out and viewed the engine, checked on progress, and again, they were told that yes, June 2nd they'll have it. Actually, it's going to be after this meeting tonight. I'm heading over to Richland for the state fire chiefs conference. The C Western is actually bringing the engine to the conference, and they're going to have it at the conference inside the vendor show, inside the conference center to be able to shown off. So I'll actually get a chance to see it tomorrow. So to sum all that up, what we have done is we have picked a date for the station birthday party and the fire engine push-in. That's going to be June 14th, which is a Saturday from 11 to 3. Chief Brown is working with Dana to come up with, I believe this week they're going to be coming up with some flyers and how they're going to promote the event. So hopefully that's going to be coming out by the end of this week. But that's what we're looking at is a party. We're going to have a open house from 11 to 2 o'clock. We're going to have a little bit of a celebration, some speeches, and we're going to have some birthday cake for the station. And then we'll also have the push-in ceremony for the engine. So again, when those invites go out, of course, the council will be invited to that once it comes out, but you'll probably see those by the end of the week. But that is the date we're going to do it, is June 14th. So that's kind of the update I have on that. Any questions on the engine?
Yeah, Councilmember Cotton.
Just a question, as far as I know, you mentioned some tweaking as far as, you know, the shelving and things like that. Do you, or has it been brought up as far as like equipment and things like that? Is, you know, usually you just kind of, when you go into a backup rig, you know, you're transferring equipment back and forth. Do you foresee that most of the equipment that we currently have on our first out engine is, you know, going to work in the new rig, or is there some things that are gonna need to be like special ordered, or anything that would, be outside of the budget for this rig coming on board?
We've been planning on that. We did purchase some of the bigger ticket items we purchased at the end of last year. Most of the equipment is going to come off the old engine. There are going to be some things we're going to update as we move over, you know, like flashlights, some things like that. Some of the minor items, we're probably going to purchase some new ones as opposed to moving over the old ones, keep the old ones in spare. All the fees that, well, not really fees, but the cost involved with getting the new rig, you know, because once it comes to us, we still have to get mounts for air packs, add different things. That's all included in the purchase price, or actually what Don Harris put together to the council. There was a fund in there that was a contingency fund to cover some of that stuff. So there are some things like that to get it ready to be put into service. But again, it's still all projected. We've been in close contact with him, going over the figures. It's all going to be under budget. It won't be under budget. We'll get everything that we need on it to be able to get it to respond the way we need it. But yeah, the majority of it's going to be transferring over equipment from the one that's going out of service.
Is the bell being transferred over?
Yes.
Councilmember Christensen, anything? All right, well, thank you for choosing my anniversary date. My wife is going to be thrilled, a parade and then
And she gets to
push in an engine. It's going to be a.
Well, we were trying to stay away from the splash pad. We were trying to, you know, we wanted to get it done before the school year, before the end of the school year. People start heading out on vacations, and we were kind of running out of dates. So I apologize for that, but
It's going to be a fun day. We've
it'll
been
be a nice
waiting
dinner
for it.
afterwards, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right.
And she can have birthday cake / anniversary cake.
There we go. Excellent. All
I'll
right.
bring an extra cupcake.
Sweet. I like that. Anything else for us, Chief?
I don't believe so.
All right. Thank you much. All right. Traffic update. Is anybody going to do that on behalf of the police department?
Okay, deer in the headlight look.
You just wanted to come and listen. Okay. No, that's all right. Yeah, no, that was helpful. So, well, I think this is the discussion from the committee standpoint of just perspective on things that are on your mind to address traffic concerns with. Yeah, Councilmember Cotton.
I know, as a build on top of, you know, the school zones and over there in the Meadowbrook area, the email I sent out about some of the racing cars and little car clubs and things like that happening over the weekend around that area out on Mill Pond and Reinig and stuff like that. And so this is all part of that, as far as that general kind of area is prone to, and Tokel, you know, people wanting to take their little souped up. Gosh, this has probably been going on since, like, you know, the wheel was invented, and, you know, people were riding horses, that I'm sure even Amish kids drag race, you know, the buggies and stuff like that. It's just part of the teenage or young adult kind of thing. We all did it. Right, Chairman Lawton?
Yeah. No, I was good. Yeah, no, speed was not my thing. Yeah. Parallel parking may have been a little more challenging. Councilmember Christensen,
On the
what do you think?
specific.
Yeah,
I'm excited to get some more information on the traffic cameras when they come. I'd love to see other options for helping to enforce, especially within the school zones. Making sure that folks, I mean, obviously, there's going to be a certain amount of speeding that we just can't address, but focusing especially on the school zones and in places where we have a lot of kids that are walking by
Keeping
the
the
street is
neighborhood
really
safe,
important.
yeah.
The parks especially as well. I know it keeps coming back. And I do appreciate that, when we have folks come in and do public comment, that I immediately see a police presence out there that's increased than what I've seen before.
right.
I appreciate how on top of it the police department is with that as well.
It's one of those things for me, you go through the speed zones, but not being really sensitive that they're not all the same time periods. So, City Administrator Chambliss, is there a reason why the speed zones are different time, or is it just something that
Sergeant Weiss, is there a reason why the speed zones are different?
would you mind, please? We don't have a
He
mic all the
programs
way
them,
back.
Public Works doesn't.
Yeah.
It's 7 to 4, isn't
I,
it?
I was
The
trying to
big
figure
ones-
out a way to get you up here.
School zones
So
are-
you can't
they don't have time
be
here. They're going.
quiet out there.
So the school zone stuff, that's dear to my heart. That's one of the things I took on when I started here in 1998. It was a disaster around there. When I started, so there's 3 ways you can post school zones. When kids are present, with flashing lights, or with times. Those are the 3 ways the state allows. When I started here, it was all just when kids are present. It was very, how do you, is school in session? When there's soccer practice, everybody kind of had a different meaning on that. So we went with the times, 7 AM to 4 PM. To me, that's pretty clear. That's when it's enforced. The lights at the elementary school at the time, the only thing you can get grants for right now is elementary schools. That's their priority. They would not give us anything for the high school. I tried.
Okay.
Snoqualmie Elementary School, Cascade View, and Timber Ridge are the 3 that we were able to get lights for through grants. But I know exactly what she's talking about. I've worked like that forever, and it's been a nonstop issue since I started here, and I can imagine now with all the people living here, how bad it's gotten. One thing I was thinking when she was talking about the school zone lights is I program them. I can turn those lights on to go from 7 AM to 4 PM in front of Snoqualmie Elementary School. That's easy. I just don't know how, if the solar panel will keep the battery charged for that amount of time. I used to have it come on in the middle of the day when they don't have midday kindergarten anymore. It used to come on in the middle of the day, but that's an easy fix. I can go have it turn on tomorrow at 7 AM and have it turn off at 4 o'clock and just see what that does. I just don't know how if the battery will stay charged or not. I don't know if the panels are big enough, but that's what I was thinking of doing tomorrow after listening to her, just to turn them on and cause you got Centennial Field there. I mean, you got the golf course there. The golf course back in the day was the biggest problem, especially with the nice weather. Everybody's coming from everywhere.
So you get about 3-4 weeks of that before school's out,
Yeah.
and we
I
can
can-
test it out.
Yeah. Just see what happens.
Councilmember Christensen.
I certainly appreciate the idea of that. What would that mean then for enforcement? Like, are the police allowed to pull anybody over during any of the hours from 9 to 4?
In front of the elementary
When
school.
not
is-
the lights are flashing?
Yes, in front of the elementary school, it's just posted when flashing, so we can just turn them on and just leave them on because you have the park and everything there. So you always have kids around. So that'd be
Yeah.
totally justified in doing.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, I've worked I've written thousands of tickets around that high school in my 27 years here, and there's been some good ones there. And I have no doubt what they're saying is true.
Yeah.
It's just, there's just way more people coming out here than 10 years ago.
Well, it's a straight shot too.
Yeah.
It's not like there's any curves there.
Yeah, Dirtfish wasn't there at the time. The dog park wasn't there at the time. I mean,
Mhm.
there's a lot of different things that are bringing people here now that wasn't there back then, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
pretty good, pretty good. Mr. Chambliss.
So, Public Works did put out rumble strips as a test. We
Yeah,
weren't
right.
sure how they were gonna perform with the snow plows. Some of them did okay, some of them not so much. It was interesting to see where they failed and where they didn't fail. So at my request, as part of the paving project this summer, they're going to be looking at doing inverse rumble strips,
Hmm,
meaning they're actually
yeah.
gonna grind
Yeah.
grooves into the streets and the plows don't attack them as they did these. So that's one thing that is occurring. We have looked at putting lights at the crosswalk over there. There's no source of power, so it's a pretty big project to pull power and put a power pedestal in and then do those lights. The sidewalk there at the crossing has already been extended out into the roadway. So it's a very short walk across that street, not so much down at the park, but right there at the elementary school. So a road diet already has happened. And the road isn't that wide to begin with. I was looking at it, and with the cars parked on both sides, it's your standard roadway width. I would encourage you not to install speed bumps or speed tables. Those things break the back of fire trucks. And that's an expense that we can't afford.
Right, excellent. I've got a question, Mr. Chambliss. Complete streets and sidewalks, is that something that's feasible over, with our CIP and taking a look at a long-term solution to make sure that we have sidewalks?
Public Works do apply for grants every year on those funding cycles. It's just we haven't qualified recently. They're inserting needs measures into more and more of the grants, and once that happens, we get disqualified.
Okay, all right. Any idea of a workaround? Is that a state-funded program?
Yeah, but I'm sure it's
Federal.
federal, I'm sure it's federal dollars passed through the
Federal
state.
dollars, okay, very well.
But we're dealing with
Community
state.
develop, does it come through Department of Commerce then?
No, this one's through transportation.
Oh, okay. All right. Anything else on speed, traffic? I do want to talk about the next one. It's not on here. We only have a couple minutes. E-bikes. We intended to, and then we kind of got distracted with other police matters. Thoughts on e-bikes, enforcement, disallowing, whatever it might be?
You have a question?
Start with Mr. Chambliss, Ms. Burke.
So our intention was to bring it to the next meeting when Gary's back.
Okay. Thoughts from council members?
Just whether Sergeant Weiss, have you guys just been encountering the same amount of nonsense?
I can tell you this, I work out at Anytime Fitness every day and I watch it every day.
Okay.
Yep.
They're doing wheelies right up and down center, cutting cars off, hitting the stop signs, and we even reached out to the prosecutor's office, and that's gonna be
Yeah.
they will not take traffic tickets in juvenile court anymore. So,
Mhm.
and that was straight from the prosecutor. We got a note on that, so we're trying to figure out what the best way is to head that off. It's bad. I can tell you it's bad. I see it. I've had them cut in front of me. I've stopped kids for it. Parents keep buying these things.
I'm seeing more and more of them
Oh, yeah.
here in the North Bend, and it's crazy. And these are young kids. They're like 12, 13, 14 years old, and they're just zooming down sidewalks in the streets, across the streets. So I guess my concern is this is, people use sidewalks to walk dogs, to ride bikes, and that's okay. But it's when we get electric bikes on those places, especially Center Boulevard. That's the big one that I've seen. In between that and also off of Douglas across to Safeway, there's been a lot. It's like right there in front of the police station where
Well,
it's
and they're
happening.
traveling. I mean, I was in North Bend one day talking to a group of kids out there about this, and 20 minutes later, they're at the YMCA.
Yeah.
These do 60 miles an hour and they're on the trails, and back in the old days where you had to pedal, it's not much
Yeah.
effort anymore to get anywhere.
Yeah.
So
It's
they're
crazy.
moving all over the place.
Now, the other thing too is I'm pretty impressed by those, and I'm going, wow, I could go up the parkway a lot faster than pedaling, which that's about ready to kill me. So I have an appreciation, but at the same time, there's a safety concern. So, all right, anything else on that matter? One last one. Thank you very much. Opioid funding. It's on our list. We only have like 2 minutes. Any comments? Yes,
Oh, thank you.
please.
I looked into this a little bit and City Clerk Dean helped a lot. We have, as of September of 2024, we've received approximately $71,000. Over the next biennium, we'll be receiving another 18,000. The way the opioid settlement works is you receive payments through every year until 2038. So by the time 2038 rolls around, the city will have received just under $300,000 from the opioid fund, but we don't have the full 300,000 now. It comes in payments over each year. What City Clerk Dean and I talked about was, and this was her recommendation and her idea, so she should get the credit, is kind of doing this similar to how we have in the past done human services funding. And so creating a volunteer advisory committee of 5 to 7 people with a council member who could be the council member liaison. This committee could advertise that we're seeking proposals, and then they would be the ones that would look at the proposals and then make a recommendation to council in terms of how to spend the money.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Burke. So given that, is it the council's direction how much of the banked money to allocate to the committee's decision? Or does it come directly from the committee that's formed to make that recommendation to council?
Comes from the committee, doesn't it?
I think the committee would make a recommendation based on the proposals that are received. I don't know. I mean, some people might have ideas for how to spend the money on opioid abatement that doesn't utilize the entire amount. So you
Okay.
might have multiple proposals. It kind of depends on what proposals we get.
So it's going to depend on the committee. We're going to look to the committee for that direction. Okay, excellent. Councilmember Cotton.
Quick question. City Attorney Burke, did I hear that you have been involved in other municipalities that, and is that kind of what they did as far as when they kind of started up their disbursement program?
I know of other cities that have utilized a method
Okay.
like this. So this is definitely, a reasonable method to go about it.
Okay. I would sure like to be interested in
Okay.
helping with.
I think you'll probably be our representative to
If
that.
if that's amenable to the Dinas.
Well,
You have to talk to your mayor pro tem.
yeah, that would be our recommendation though to Mayor Pro Tem. Well, with that, is there anything else to come before us? Because we are down at the end of the hour. Thank you very much. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Cotton, second by Councilmember Christensen to adjourn. Any objections? Hearing none, we are adjourned at 5:57 PM.